The woman had only slept in a little late. When she woke up, she found that her servant had been waiting by her side for 100 years. To reward the servant for his loyalty to her, the woman decided to let him serve as her servant for another 100 years, so she waved her hand casually, directly making the servant 100 years younger. At that moment, the woman suddenly remembered that 100 years ago, her families had received her protection and promised to send the most outstanding descendant of their family to serve as her servant. Now the appointed time had arrived, but they had not kept their promise, so the woman decided to go to their doors to claim what was hers. Soon, one of the families received a letter that flew out of nowhere. The letter stated the agreement made 100 years ago and said that the woman had now come to their door to demand the servant. After reading it, the current family had suddenly remembered that his father had indeed received help from a powerful expert during his lifetime, and their family had thrived for 100 years because of it. However, he was not sure if the agreement to send a servant was true, but out of caution, he still respectfully invited the woman into the house. Yet when the hostess saw how young the woman was, she couldn't help but think about how her husband had been particularly cold to her recently. She couldn't help but suspect that the woman was her husband's lover from outside, and that her husband wanted to bring his lover to divide the family property under the pretext of the agreement. So she immediately said that her grandfather had just passed away, and no one could confirm the woman's true identity. But there was a portrait of their benefactor in her grandfather's room, and she wanted to take it out to compare with the woman. However, upon hearing this, the woman said it was too troublesome. She planned to directly wake the old man up to let him explain clearly, but the family had suddenly said that his grandfather had suffered from illness for many years before his death. Before confirming the woman's identity, they did not want outsiders to disturb the old man's peace. Upon hearing this, the woman had to agree. But seeing this, the hostess became even more convinced that they were putting on a show. As soon as her husband left to get the portrait, the hostess immediately confronted the woman. She said their benefactor was extremely powerful, but the woman had been wearing a veil since entering the door and did not dare to show her true face. There were generally only two possibilities for this: either she was an imposter, or she had a facial injury. Both possibilities were enough to show that she was not that powerful master. The more the hostess spoke, the more she thought she was right, and she even began to insult the woman as an arrogant gold digger. The servant beside her kindly reminded her that anyone who saw the woman's true face would lose 100 years of their lifespan, but the hostess thought this was just an excuse they made up. At that moment, the host returned with the portrait. The figure and temperament of the woman in the painting were very similar to the woman in front of them. Because of this, the host was certain that the woman was the family's benefactor, but the hostess insisted on lifting the woman's veil to compare. The host told her that before his grandfather passed away, he had warned him not to attempt to see the woman's true face, but the more the host tried to stop her, the more the hostess thought he was hiding something. She also said that with her around, she would never allow a lover to swagger around in their home. With that said, the hostess pushed her husband aside and directly lifted the woman's veil.